A quick thank you to Handmade, a local band here who's just released their debut EP called For You. It's on, I believe, all streaming services. They allowed us initial access, pre-release, for their amazing song On and On, which you hear before and through the podcast. If you do get a chance to check them out, Handmade, not the Thai boy band, just check them out, give them a follow on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you might be able to search and find them. Thanks again to Handmade for an awesome track for us. Welcome to Perspectives YYC. Today's a special episode which we recorded live at Vintage Caffeine Co. in West Hillhurst. We sat down with Austin Kamenz, who's a street artist here in Calgary, chatted about his inspiration and how he approached his work. Kyle and the Media Lab gang came out and we did this at a table in the cafe. And currently you're hearing an intro recorded on a tiny mic supplied by my incredible wife. And so it's gonna sound different. I apologize for that. But without further ado, I hope you enjoy this segment. And if you can, check out Austin's work at the Vintage Caffeine. And also, if you can give us a follow, write us a review, and just generally tell us how we're doing. Thanks very much, and hope you guys are all doing well.
I think the art is white, I think it's pretty cruel. Could go on and on and on and on about you. You might think the art is white, but I think it's pretty cruel. Could go on and on and on and on about you. And I would, if I could, fall in. I would, if I could, fall in.
Welcome to a live-ish broadcast of Perspectives YYC. We're here at Vintage Caffeine Co., which is this beautiful coffee shop here in West Hillhurst. I was corrected that this is not Kensington. Isabella says it's West Hillhurst.
Dang.
Yeah, so don't fuck around. On Kensington Road.
Yeah, you'd think.
Right?
You'd think it would be in Kensington then.
Yeah, it's not. Austin, you're incorrect. You got it absolutely incorrect. So I'm sitting here with Austin. Austin, how do I pronounce your last name?
Kamenz.
Kamenz.
Yeah.
Right. Austin actually, and we'll see if we produce this in time, has a solo show with us here at the Vintage Caffeine Co. in West Hillhurst.
West Hillhurst, not Kensington.
No, we
Like
don't
I've
want to
been advertising.
confuse West Hillhurst with Kensington.
No.
We want to make sure that it's clear that we are on Kensington Road,
Yep. Yeah, we are.
but we are not in Kensington, the
Right.
borough. Is it a borough? Kyle just shrugged at me like, just get off this topic. I wanted to talk to you, Austin. Number one, because I don't know, you have a solo show here, our first that we set up here for a reason. I mean, I really like your work.
Thank you.
And number two, one of the things we're beginning to wonder is how do we get regular people to give a shit about people that make art, especially here in Calgary. So I want to ask you, Austin, how do we do that?
That's a pretty loaded question,
Yeah,
Dave.
please solve my problem for me.
I don't know if I can solve your problem, but I mean, I think it just starts with getting people connected. Like, art is super relatable to anybody, but is it relatable enough that they want to go out to events and share in it, you know? I think it's just a matter of, just getting people connected, introducing them to why it matters for them, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm kind of coming to that same conclusion, which is the sense of a narrative, a story that we need to tell, a connection we need to make. And again, I think we blame the digital age too much for everything because this is something that's been through human history. But this idea that art is not just disposable, but instant, that it disappears the moment you walk away from it, and that all you have to do is acknowledge, like, oh yeah, that has the color blue in it, and then you walk away and you're like, oh, I saw some art. So we are here. We now here at Perspectives. Hey guys, hey, we. All right, cool. are trying to use the word narrative, which is obviously an often used word. And the narrative I want to establish with artists here, with this local vibe in Calgary, is starting with questions like, Austin, I mean, why do you paint, man? Like, you're a street artist. People can't see it on the audio thing, but it's not in the form of the Renaissance masters. It's got an edgy vibe to it. So, I mean, maybe you could take us through what brought you into art, whether that was here, elsewhere, and why do you paint, man?
It's a good question. Why do I paint? Over the years, I've found that painting probably is the most expressive thing visually that I can do. I've always been artistic. I've always been involved in artwork, but usually I grew up drawing, just typical stuff like that. Yeah, I kind of started playing around with paint a number of years ago, pretty recently. And that was kind of at the same time that I started getting involved with graffiti and street art. And through that, actually, that was kind of my first use of color and paint and layering. And I started to realize, if I took these principles and put them into my fine art in the sketchbook or on a canvas, I could really, express a lot more than what I'm doing with just ink or just pencil. So that's why I started painting. But why do I create? I don't really think about it too much, but always took really kindly to art and just kind of wanted to follow that path as far as I could go. And it was super casual for most of my life, just something that I enjoyed. But then I realized that what I wanted to say could be most authentically expressed through the art. That was kind of that's the language that I speak most comfortably. It's just really how I desire to share myself with the world. I could do it a number of ways, but I really enjoy just painting, so.
Okay. I mean, let's maybe look through that with starting at street art and graffiti. I mean, when do you get into that? How do you get into that? Is that in Calgary? Obviously, you can be as reserved as you feel you need to be to not
absolutely
reveal that you're the one that screwed everything up back in, not 1990 something, maybe 2016. I don't know how old you are actually, Austin.
I'll keep that a mystery, but I don't know really when that started, but it was something that, so I grew up in Vancouver, right? Abbotsford, actually, I should say Abbotsford, but I was in Vancouver a lot as a kid, and there's a lot of graffiti and street art and just public art in that area. And even in Abbotsford at the time, it was pretty small, but there was a lot of weird little spots that had a lot of like cool artwork, legal or illegal. And so I grew up seeing that, and then freight trains and everything else. And I was just always interested in it. I just always thought it was really cool. And it kind of became, even from a young age, something that was just pretty normal. You just see it on the streets. Like, it just makes sense. That's where it belongs. That's how I thought of it. And I was always, drawing letters, sketching graffiti as a kid, like whatever. I would have been like 14 maybe when I got like my first spray can. And I got like a set of them, and that was pretty sweet. And that's really it. It doesn't take much to get into. Just get spray paint and start spraying. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a simple answer, but that was what I did. I just started exploring and playing around, and it kind of just developed, and I started to realize what you could do with it, and then took that to my canvas work. And yeah.
Do you think, there's a distinction maybe with ugly tags, negative sort of imagery, a classic sort of evolution of that from graffiti into street art in the hip hop scene, let's say in the 70s and 80s in New York. Having come from Toronto, that then becomes these commercial public art projects, and that's happening here in Calgary, where you might get some, whether they're a prominent street artist to begin with, but they start doing these mural drawings that they're prettier. Is there a relationship, do you think, with your family approaching art as a whole that influences you to move away from just acting cool like in a gang and trying to deface property and wanting to actually make something that builds a narrative? Or do you think that's just...
I think I get what you're asking. Like, what, like, maybe to rephrase it, like, what was the influence that, like, or is there an influence that draws me away from just like destruction and like vandalism?
Just being a dick.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've had those moments, right? But I don't know really what it would be. Like my grandpa was a sign painter, and he had his own, not when I was alive, but before I was born, he had his own sign shop, and he did a lot of work. That was his only job. And so even after that closed down, he always stayed involved in art. So as a kid, I spent a lot of time with him in BC, and I mean, I always saw his work. He was very clever. He was a cartoonist as well, so it was very witty. Yeah, there wasn't really anything that he couldn't draw, but it was significant beyond that. It did have a narrative. It did have a message. He would kind of sitcom himself a lot of times, make jokes about his day-to-day or whatever. So I grew up with the understanding that art was to be that way. It was to be significant. It was to be witty or, clever or whatever, more than just visually appealing. And I don't know. That I think was a big influencer. How much of that leaked into like my graffiti street art experience? I'd say quite a bit. I always try to approach things a little bit differently. I do try to, stray from that reputation of just vandalism or just tagging or whatever. Yeah, I mean, with this project, with this exhibition, it was kind of the question of how can I blend those two worlds? How can I, make nice street art and graffiti accessible to people that typically wouldn't see it?
What do you think is the difference then? I mean, what moves us out of tags, graffiti, defacement, marring, into structured narratives, the use of color, layering, all that kind of stuff, intentionality? Is there a specific guiding point, or is it just up to the individual and some people just grow out of it and they build things, or is there something that's like more structured, intentional about it? I mean, what's your feeling with that?
Well, I will add real quick, like, there's definitely a narrative within tagging. There's definitely like a lot of culture there, and you kind of have to understand too that like if you're looking at it as the manipulation of letters or the stylistic expression of a word, real or not real, you take 4 letters, you take 5 letters, and you write it as expressively as you can, as many times as you can, as many places as you can.
Matt just fucked up the broadcast.
What's he doing?
He just dropped his camera on the table. I just God damn it. All right.
Get out of here, Matt. Just kidding.
All right. No, keep going. Manipulation of letters.
I mean, there's a lot of expression that can take place within tagging, but
fucking Matt. Keep going.
Let's tag Matt's house. If you want to if you want to get out of that, and not that it's something that you need to escape. Like I still appreciate tags, and I still practice just writing things artistically, but because it kind of blends into a lot of like typography and fonts and style and stuff like that. So, how many street artists that stay in the tagging graffiti world actually study fonts? Is that part of tagging? Because like my wife's a print person, so she understands. Like it's pretty insane watching her build layouts and stuff. I'm not, so I have Times New Roman and Comic Sans MS. Right. And outside of that, I couldn't give a fuck what they're called, and I don't understand the difference. Like visually, when I see them, there are shapes. One looks normal, and one makes you really mad.
Or some, Times New Roman makes me mad.
That's
all
Comic
the
Sans.
essays, and Comic Sans is like no. So like, when she shows me different things, or she makes our lettering for the shows, or she builds the magazine, and she shows me the difference, I can have an intuition that one is different than the other, but the study of it, the typography of it, I don't understand any of that. Like, how many people would you say like actually give a shit at that level? Like,
within graffiti? Yeah. I'd probably very few, and not to like outlier myself and as this like one-off whatever. I'm sure there's a lot of people that there's a lot of people that do. In the Calgary scene, it's tough to say. Like I meet a lot of people that are impressed with typography, or that it maybe enjoy and have the ability to recognize neat fonts or whatever, but very few that understand the fundamentals of it and then can twist that and have those fundamentals leak over into their tags. And that's something, going back to me just trying to be different and kind of include that narrative, is how can I take like script or Gothic calligraphy and put it into a tag? What fundamentals can I cross over to kind of create my own style? And I think if we want to get away from that, I think every artist should want to develop and in a sense get away from that simplistic scrawling kind of style and really take their style to the next level. I think you have to practice those fundamentals.
I'm sitting across a young man in a hoodie and a painted bomber jacket talking about Gothic calligraphy. That's a fascinating thing. I'm also assuming that actually makes some sense, because I have no idea what that means in general. But maybe we could lead from that and look at the pieces we have on the wall here at Vintage. And I mean, is there a narrative that we can talk about, the use of the letter work and the shapes and the way you place them onto the canvas that actually speak to what you're talking about?
Yeah, let's start with like just kind of the facts. And I mean, in all of my work, I try my best to just abide by, not rules, but I'll use that word fundamentals again, that, there's certain things, and you would understand in your work as well, that there are rules you kind of want to follow, and composition and color and all that stuff. Like you can break those rules, but there's certain things that people like that just appeal to the eye, and certain things that don't. So I try to follow those, and that kind of like comes out in the layout and the color use and stuff. But as far as kind of what I'm trying to say with these pieces, like I laugh at myself a lot actually, because I write the same word over and over again. I'll switch it up once in a while, but it's the same word all the time, and sometimes the letters even look the same. And that's true in almost all graffiti. Typically, you have one name your whole career, and you just draw it a bunch of different ways. And so when you do that, to me, it really breaks down the meaning of the word and the significance of the subject or the images. And it really starts to speak for itself in more of a visual sense. So, can you express two different feelings with the same word? Whether that's something really clean and straight cut, or, crazy and messy and really expressive. So with this exhibition, a lot of the pieces that I did, especially on the two above us here, Honey and Age, it was just, I want it to be visually appealing. I want it to look nice, something that like I would want hanging in my house. But it was just a matter of like getting what's inside of me out onto canvas, but without taking words that specifically explain that, if that makes sense. I'm not really one to like choose a specific, like let's say you're like, I'm feeling happy. What's an image that represents happiness? A dove or some, maybe peace. I don't know, whatever. And then you're limited to that. There's masterminds, there's geniuses that have figured out really cool ways to do that. But for me, I prefer to stray from thinking about the subject matter or the words, and just let the brush stroke, the color, the texture, the composition speak for itself, and try to share a message that way.
For happiness, I'd go with Comic Sans MS, I think.
Good idea.
So, looking at that, it's interesting too, your, not just almost your academic approach. The one thing I noticed with you as well, hang out with you a little bit, is I am also meeting a lot of different, whether they're street artists or big artists, whatever, and you seem to actually know who they are. More than I do, actually. Right. And so we run into Alex Kwong and Carl Van Charles, and people that we've just kind of run into, and you actually follow their work. Is that right? Or you're just aware of these people that are doing public art projects? I mean, how much of that is part of your, if not process, your awareness of what's going on around you?
Yeah, I wouldn't brand myself as like super in the know, but I do try to keep up with the scene, and that's always evolving. You're always going to be meeting people that you didn't know of, or whatever the case. But yeah, a lot of my process is just I don't want to say following, but yeah, keeping track of what's going on in the city and artists that are coming up or artists that are making it, artists that aren't, or people that should be. I don't know. It's just kind of one big ecosystem, but it's nice to know what's going on and what's new and what's out, right? A lot of people ask me about inspiration. I speak with like a lot of youth or young artists, and probably the biggest question is like, how do I cultivate creativity? How do I become motivated? Where do I find inspiration? I think if you're asking those questions, like you're not doing enough. If you have to ask how I can be motivated, it's because I don't know. I think people think that you have to be motivated to make work or whatever, but you just got to do it. So for me, like I don't follow the work of other artists for inspiration necessarily, but it is definitely inspiring.
You'll note that I didn't ask that question because I'm not a good interviewer and I didn't have any questions prepped for you. But Austin,
that's
if I had
right.
to ask you a question, I'd have to ask you, it's like, what is your inspiration? No, I'm just joking.
Dang.
Thanks for listening so far. We just wanted to say that this podcast has been brought to you by Media Lab YYC. Kyle Marshall runs this amazing little outfit here in downtown Calgary. And we wanted to say this. Here at Media Lab YYC, we help you share your stories with the public. Video, audio, business, personal. Let us help you take your idea to the finish line. From your reflection of the art scene here in Calgary, noting, I guess, people that are making it, people that aren't, these kids that, ask these questions, etc. Are you getting a feel for some direction or maybe a characteristic of what the Calgary art scene is like, at least from this world, like, street art, mural art? Is it one that you think is constructive, it's positive, that there's a lot of energy? Is it one that has kind of a negative nuance to it where either, the old phrase of selling out is there, commercialization, or this other thing that I'm coming across, which is that everybody seems to want to move out, not because they hate Calgary or anything, but they all think they gotta go to Montreal, Alex Kwong, Toronto, LA, England. I've heard Germany is a big thing. I've been to to Berlin. Berlin's incredible.
That's just like Brazil.
Yeah. Berlin in Brazil. Berlin, Brazil. It's beside Rio de Janeiro. No, I've been to Berlin. Berlin is a beautiful city. But then my wife told me after another artist brought it up that Berlin and Germany has become this hub for international cultivation of art. And they have, a different approach to academics and art, etc., than we do here in Canada. But I don't know, like, what's your feeling right now as a young and I guess up and coming artist? Is it one of hope? Is it one of fear? Is it like, are you getting a sense from looking at all these other artists and how they exist?
Yeah, I'm definitely getting a sense of something. And I agree with you, like the tendency of good local artists to dip, when they, and I mean, you got to follow the opportunities, right? Like if a door is open, then go for it. But heads up, like I'm not the master. Like I don't know, like I don't want to title Calgary anything that it isn't. This is just what I see. But I think it's pretty positive. I think at the level that I'm at, the people that I'm surrounded by, I see a lot of positivity. I see a lot of talent. There's a lot of people in the city that I think just don't get recognition. That and obviously that has to do something with them and their drive, right? But there's a lot of people that could be doing some really dope work and just aren't. That being said, I'm working with someone right now who says that the project that she's building is an answer to the negativity that she feels. So there's other people that would disagree with me, that would say the art scene is judgmental, or the culture is negative, or the content being expressed is typically negative. And I'm sure there's truth to that too. So I mean, I try to keep a positive mindset, and like talking about Berlin and stuff. I didn't know that actually about Berlin. My goal right now is just to impact my immediate community and the city. And if I think from all the great people that I've observed that have been successful, that's always been their goal initially. I think maybe we've discussed this before. I can't remember, but there's a lot of people in history who have started with their family or their friends or their workplace to just make a change, and that's extended very far. And then in kind of an opposite way, I think at times if you try to make a global change too quick, but you're not reaching your friends or your family, then I don't know, maybe like if for me, I would say that my priorities are off if that's what I'm doing. I try to just reach my immediate surroundings first.
You guys having a thing in here?
We were. I mean, is that on the mic or? No, I'm just joking. I unsubscribed from Reddit, but
Nice.
I saw this at Kyle's building. Sorry, at Media Lab's building today. Wait, did I put it on? Which Instagram did I put it on? Oh,
You
where's
did
the
post
picture?
a lot. I did see a lot from Reddit.
Hold on a second. Yeah, Reddit's great in its own way, but essentially it was, now I'm going to have to misquote it, but it was about looking at life and where you are as an opportunity to create what you think should exist, as opposed to, complaining that it doesn't. Yeah. And so that sort of saying came from an investment company because it was about money.
Okay.
But I think from an art perspective, I want to believe the same thing too, which is that, I don't know, if we think that there should be a podcast in a coffee shop with a couple of weirdos.
Sounds familiar.
Then you should just do it.
Yeah.
You know? But if we spend a lot of time saying, well, these are the reasons why I can, or nobody does this in Calgary, and this only happens in Montreal, Alex Kwong, then nothing happens, right? But instead we just do it, and whether it's good or not, honestly, it's probably not. But we just keep pushing and keep making it happen, and then it becomes its own thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think again, going back to, wanting to make a huge change, I'm not discrediting people that go out and do change a country or a nation or the world, right? But for me, I always try to focus on myself first, not in a selfish way, but I think there's so many people that do complain about the city and the art scene and everything like that. And even outside of the art scene, just people that complain in general about, this needs to change and whatever. But if you look at our gross inability to change ourselves, right? And you carry that out. If you want to change the city of Calgary, you're asking everybody that lives in Calgary to change. And if you can't change yourself, it's going to be really hard, right? I think it just starts with, do you have that right attitude? Do you have, do you even believe that it's possible? Or do you have hope? There's a lot that needs to happen, I think, personally before we start complaining. So, I mean, if you want something like a podcast, then why not you? Right?
I mean, you have to meet Kyle Marshall first because he has to produce it. But
okay.
Yeah, outside of that, it's no problem. I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you, and it's interesting trying to create that narrative for yourself, that idea of personal growth and whatever you have to hit to kind of want to do that next thing.
Yeah, I always thought that growing up there was landmarks that you had to hit before you could be successful or significant or do the next thing. But that takes all the power away from our kids, from the youth, right? That takes all the power away from anybody that's starting out, because then the mindset becomes, until I'm 18 I can't do anything. Right? That's totally not true. I so wish that I had realized that earlier and started earlier, but it doesn't matter.
I apologize for the smug gestures of my smug fellow here.
Amen.
Thanks, Matt.
Matt. No, you know what I like about that is that you guys are saying things like this verbally and out loud at such a younger age. It's interesting when you get into these rote assumptions of what life is supposed to be, and people that exist for this, that, or the other thing. Whether it's drinking, driving, sex, university, career, salary, retirement, whatever the fuck that they have these stanchions where they're like, oh yeah, this means I'm making it.
Yeah,
if I have 3 bedrooms now and 4 bedrooms later, if I've got a pool, if I got a thing. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. I mean, I would love to have a pool in my living room. It's cool. The idea of just going for a dip.
Totally.
Who wouldn't want to go for a dip?
I would go for a dip.
Yeah. But then there's something about that becomes quite shitty.
Yeah.
And crushing.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to push that. I really believe that it goes back to that same concept where
Matt placed his camera again on the table.
Oh, shoot. Matt.
I mean, you think
Don't actually shoot, Matt. I meant oh, shoot. At Matt.
I'm reserving judgment on the phrasing right now. If we go for 3,
We got to edit that out.
it's not possible, as I'm learning. I learned I had a clicky pen problem, episode 1.
I remember
Problem.
that.
Yeah.
I remember that. That's okay.
Yeah. There's no response to that. I fucked up that podcast because I just kept clicking my goddamn pen. Sorry.
No pens.
No pens.
No pens. Yeah, going back to that concept, absolutely go for a dip, but I think your order and your priority need to be so clear on that before you focus on changing your bank account and anything else, you've changed yourself and that you're happy with yourself, right? And if you do that first, then it doesn't matter what size pool you have. You'll be happy where you're at, but you'll be happy also with what if you have more. You won't ever feel like you lack. And I think people today, so many people are unaware of that, and there's that feeling of lack, right? But the sad thing is, it is really shitty because you get to that point where you have everything that you've set out to get, and then you realize that you're still the same and that you're still upset,
One of the things I think about this sort of goal-oriented planning is that we believe that once you attain whatever you think you're supposed to get, that everything's done. It's like that Hollywood story idea that
Hollywood is
you kiss that boy, girl, or object, and then the end. Everything's happy. You get a big erection, everything's good. If I have an insight about it as a 40-year-old, and I'm not young, I'm not old, is that all those things go away too. And so one of the things I've been focusing on is this idea that whether it's good or bad, whether you like it or you don't, that given time, it goes away.
Yeah.
So if you make money, it'll go away. If you don't make money, it'll go away. Right. If you're famous, it'll go away. If you're not famous, it'll go. Like everything is just...
Yeah.
Actually has no...
You can't
meaning.
take a single day and label it as this is what it is. Like you're saying, it's always subject to change. The funny thing about movies and Hollywood is that, do you know what's weird to me is that you never see, it's like you said, it's the kiss or it's the marriage or they lived happily ever after. But we don't ever see that. We don't see the day to day. We don't see getting the mail and changing the baby's diaper. It's just this big climax and this conclusion, and then that's it. So when we reach that climax in our lives, then because if we haven't had an example growing up of what the conclusion actually looks like, and we take it from Hollywood, every little kid growing up is going to think that after you kiss this boy or this girl, it's over, and that's super sad.
What I don't like too about Hollywood is they've tried to challenge that, but it's always bitter, shitty men that write those stories, and it always is critically acclaimed films these days. It's just miserable. It's just so goddamn pessimistic. It's why I've lost my love of movies, I think. Not to blame them, but I can't watch these movies that try to do that show the next stage, and then it's always invariable.
Well, the thing is, even if they did it properly, even if they did, it's actually boring. I'm not saying they should do that in movies because I would never watch them. I'll be flat out. But as entertainment, it's very bad to just have a normal movie where nothing bad happens and nothing good happens. But I think we need to be aware that is real. That's what happens typically in real life, Well, you know what I would counter is that instead of nothing happening, you just get Oogway in Kung Fu Panda, who, while everything's happening, he says good news, bad news. There's only news. The good and bad are what you interpret. And then they talk about how, I can't remember who the first bad guys escaped from prison. He says that is bad news because that's bad news for him too, it's a great joke. But there's that, I don't know if it's Taoist philosophy that's behind that, which I'm trying to adhere to, which is that it's not that nothing happens. I mean, life is full of shit that's good or bad. But when we take away our relational perspective of it, so for example, if somebody ran into my car outside of here at Vintage, is it good news? Is it bad news? How are we supposed to know? At first it's oh, that's so terrible. It's going to cost money. Right.
But maybe something else happens in 5 or 10 years that actually attributed something. Who knows?
Totally.
So
Yeah.
that well, nihilist is a negative way to put it, but Buddhist, Shintoist, Taoist, usually East Asian, they're a little bit more balanced in that regard. Historically, they have a lot of civilizations that are always at war, so their philosophies. Now I'm talking too much shit because I don't actually know anything about this stuff, but they historically have these cultures that didn't have that kind of stability, and so you get these perspective philosophies that are actually more about, hey, like, chill.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be a new king in 10 years, so fuck off. Like, it's, there's no point in worrying about it. Whereas these, Western empires are like, that same fat fuck's been sitting up there for 60 years. His son's going to take over for him, and then they get into their philosophies of how everything works in one way.
Yep.
This is the right way. Everybody's got to listen.
Like, elderly McDonald's crew.
Wow.
Right? They're like, this is the way the world is, and they talk about it every Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Till they die.
Yeah.
It's super sad.
But what's weird? That when they die, they're right in their own way, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
they're not happy,
it,
but they're right.
Yeah. Whatever.
This is why I don't study philosophy. This is why I became a philosopher.
Don't take anything I say home because it's...
Well, it's now part of the digital canon, right?
There we go.
Kyle told me that this is all permanent once it's out there.
Impossible to be erased.
It's impossible to be erased. Yeah. Even if you mugged Kyle right now
Yeah.
and destroyed the device this
Is that what I should do?
It's too late.
Shoot.
It's in the cloud. I have absolutely no idea what the cloud is, but it's probably not there. But it is there. Actually, that's one thing we'll work on next is actually putting it in the cloud immediately without any editing.
Interesting.
So why the fuck not? Yeah. There's a new person here who's been looking around and videotaping us. This is the thing about live sessions. It's different than in our little cubby at Media Lab, right?
I like it.
Matt gently caressed my back while he was gesturing to his friend. It's exciting. Sensual.
He didn't have to, actually. He just decided.
Well, I presume that. Yeah, I presume that. It's easy to get distracted when you're... No, actually, Kyle says we have 5 more minutes. Okay.
Of life?
I hope not.
This is it, eh?
Fuck. Yeah, that'd be a problem. I don't know. What should we do? So, number 1, you're going to be with us in December for the year-end collective show.
Yes.
That's going to be next week because apparently it's already December.
Crazy, right?
I don't know.
I know.
What's next for you? I was going to bring up that you're dating this nice lady who's
Very
studying
nice.
fine art.
Yeah.
And you guys were supposed to write me an article about the positional sort of relationship of the value of art. I'm still waiting for that, by the way. But it's too late. 5 minutes doesn't give us enough time to go into that treacherous territory. But maybe, bringing that up, I mean, what are you going to do next, Austin? Like, what's next for you? Do you have any kind of projects that are specific to pieces, to shows?
Got some really cool stuff actually in 2019, all before the summer, but I just actually don't know enough about them to really say. Nothing's really finalized, but hopefully some live artwork, live painting in the next year. Yeah, maybe have my pieces up somewhere. I don't know. We'll see. That's just all projects and stuff like that. For me though, I just want to keep, I think if I could sum it up, what I want to do with my work primarily is just find better ways to share more, because when I create and I look at my stuff, I get what it means and I feel what it means, but how can I make that more explicit for the audience? And like I said, can I take something that's visual and give it more than just the visual appeal? Can I give it more of a in-your-face message without being too in-your-face?
We're working on some stuff, both, I don't know, I guess we'll call it perspectives. I was about to call it Media Lab, but, it was my idea, guys. It was my idea. Matt? Kyle? Fucking jerks. But actually, it was not my idea. It was an idea both from Mitch, who's another member of this new team, But it wasn't even his idea. It actually originated from a show that's coming up in February that we're going to do for Exposure Photography Festival. It's going to be about concert photography.
Cool. That's cool.
But what came out of that conversation is kind of what you're getting at, which is the interactivity, the establishing of alternate narratives outside of just the context of the work. So hopefully, Austin, you'll continue to hang out with me.
Oh yeah.
And maybe we can do some cool stuff coming forward. I don't know what's going on. I lost the plot. Everybody's looking at each other a little bit funny.
No, I'm down.
Oh,
There's some romance going on here.
I felt the temperature increase on my right side,
Yeah.
but I wasn't actually sure what it was, particularly from, the... No, now I'm just being childish. Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot to say. There's a lot that needs to get out, so.
No, thanks for hanging out with me. I'll talk to Kyle, and hopefully we'll see if we can even get this out before the show ends. Kyle's
cool.
giving me the
be
intentional look. And then you're going to be recording with us soon anyways, because we're going to build some content for the next show. So awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Comic
you.
Sans MS.
Yeah,
All
large font. That was great.
right, cool.